We will call to order the February 13th, 2025 Bexley Architectural Review Board meeting. Can we call the roll?
Mr. Heyer.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Calhoun.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Chairwoman Tony.
Here. Can we have approval of the meeting minutes from last month?
So moved. Higher. Second, Hall.
Call the roll.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer. Chairwoman Tony.
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here last month. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
This is the time of the meeting for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board about something that is not on the agenda tonight? If it's on the agenda, we will talk about it as we get to them. Any takers for that? I don't see any hands. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do then is we are going to approve the consent agenda items. So we have 5 applications that the board has reviewed and either made small tweaks or no changes, and we are putting them on a consent agenda. And so I'm going to read the addresses, and if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak about those applications, let me know. The first one is application ARB 25-2. The address is 218 North Parkview. The applicant is Chelsea Dwyer and the owner is Lori Ann and Jonathan Feibel. The second one is ARB 25-3. The address is 2540 Maryland Avenue. The applicant is James Knox. The owner is John and Nemarita Adakal. I may have just botched that name. Sorry if I did. The third one is BZAP 25-3. The address is 2527 to 2529 East Main Street. The applicant is Kyle Green and the owner is Georgia Gawkin. The fourth one is ARB 25-53. The address is 755 Vernon. The applicant is Brenda Parker and the owner is Rachel and Nathan Lane. And the last one is application number ARB 25-56. The address is 2415 South Havenwood. The applicant is Austin Yoke and the owner is Kate Cheresnick. Is there anyone in the audience that came to speak about those applications? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no one. Is there a board member that will make a move to approve those 5 applications?
So moved, Scott.
Second, Calhoun.
Mr. Heyer.
Going to abstain.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes. Okay, those 5 applications are approved. And it looks like the next thing on the agenda is to go to tabled applications. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, the first tabled application is number BZAP 24-37. The address is 2775 Powell. The applicant is Brian Shepherd and the owner is Brian and Katie Shepherd. The applicant is seeking a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for a certificate of appropriateness to add a new garage constructed 3 feet off of the property line. Is the applicant here?
See it in the.
These all have been asked to be tabled prior to the meeting. We have things on.
I see what you're
We
saying.
have emails or letters on record, so we just need to have somebody on the board move that both of these applications be tabled to. Oh, I'm so sorry. We need to just have a board member move that these be tabled to March 13th, 2025
But they
ARB.
weren't tabled to this meeting. They are tabled to the next. meeting.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a format change.
Yep, my bad. Okay, and the second one is ARB 24-51. The address is 653 Euclair. The applicant is David Lip and the owner is David Lip. So these 2 applications will not be heard tonight. They will be tabled to the next meeting in March. Okay, is there a board member that will make a motion to move those to next month?
So moved. So moved. Higher. Second, Hall.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes.
Mr. Hire,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, on to new business. Our first order of new business is application number BZAP 25-4. The address is 811 South Roosevelt. The applicant is Eric Kramer. The owner is Katie Sells, and the applicant is seeking architectural review and approval and a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing deck and rebuild, replace the walkway with concrete and build a gabled covered roof from the garage to the home. Is the applicant here for that? Thank you. And can you be sworn in, please?
Can you state your name and address, please? Your address is fine. Business is fine. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth? Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Sorry.
This application is before the board for the first time. This is an unusual case that the applicant is desiring to have a covered walkway from the garage to the primary structure. I've actually spoke to the applicant. I haven't spoke to the owner, but I spoke to the applicant and I believe the designer as well. You're right. I first spoke with. Correct. And then we had a nice conversation. So none of this should come as a surprise to you, but I'm going to fill the board in and just kind of summarize our conversation. As staff, I can't recommend a covered gable roof that connects these two because it creates one big primary structure. And that while that's a zoning issue, and there are cases where zoning has approved a connection, it is more typically with more of a garden structure, like a trellis or some kind of a less building-like roof. Because the worry that we have as staff is that this is primed to just be filled in on the sides, regardless of how it's built. It would be an easy structure for any owner, current or in the future, to want to complete that enclosure. And we don't want to encourage that. I put a aerial from Google Earth up on in the staff report. It's up on the screen that shows that that's just out of character for the neighborhood. This is just a very typical house in this neighborhood where in this area where a detached garage is separate and continues to be detached from the primary structure. I do, however, always try to help the applicant try to achieve the goals that they're looking for. And we did talk a little bit about how as a staff, that is reviewing this case, I could completely get behind doing a fully covered roof over the new deck, and have it stop there. I also think it would be helpful with the elevation change to the garage to maybe then put a more tenuous structure, like it's more permeable at the top, I know, but you could do a trellis structure that maybe had some vines that you could grow over it or something like that. So we talked a lot about it. I did prepare the applicant that the zoning would be really hard to achieve on the way it's proposed, and that I could support either tabling this case to come back with a different design that is more in line with the way, the idea that I just described, or that we could go ahead and move it to zoning to even see what the temperature is at zoning, if the applicant or the owner did not really felt strongly about not changing it. So that's kind of where my discussion was with the applicant and my recommendation. That is what I have.
So can I just, you're the person that would be building it, is that?
So I own the house and. Yes.
Gotcha. And so have you talked to the applicant, the owner of the house, to know how this design came about?
Yeah, so actually I was on the second visit to her home. When contract was actually signed. I've done a lot of work in Bexley. And so, I kind of told her, I said, we will probably have to maybe do some modifications. It's gonna have to go to code board, it's gonna have to go to zoning. But tell me what you would like to achieve, and we'll start there and see where we can get to from that point. And so
Can you just let the board know what was the
Oh.
goal?
the goal was to give her a.
Could you push the
Push the
button?
button on the,
Thank you.
thanks, sorry about that.
It's green now. Okay, sorry. So her goal was to have a covered walkway from the home to the garage. So that when it's raining, snowing, that she can get out to her car, and not slip and fall. And also I think she has pets. She had said something about her dogs. So I said we can put it together as it being attached at both ends. And she does have a deck now that's raised above the ground, probably about yay high, and then it's gonna be another 8 foot above that, so it would probably jog a little bit going down. It wouldn't look like a shed or something that you could just easily fill in with walls. And I said, well, maybe they'll ask us to put arches from the post up to the beams or something so that it's not just square that you could frame out and put into walls. It'll make it out of something that is like maybe cedar. To make it more outdoorsy, atrium kind of looking effect. My thing is that I'm kind of trying to figure out what you're gonna allow me to do, what you're not gonna allow me to do, so that I can modify it and then go back to her with that and present it to her. We could do, even if we were allowed to do a solid roof, we could not detach it at the house or the garage. Which would separate it, so it's not an attached structure.
Mhm.
And again, just use 6x6s for the post and the same thing with the beam, but give her an actual roof that stops the water.
And Karen, can you explain why this has to go to BZAP? What rule is this breaking that it has to go to BZAP rather than just in front of
It would
us?
need a variance because once you attach that structure to both the primary house and the garage, it becomes one whole primary structure. So it would need a rear yard setback variance.
What if we didn't attach it, that we did like
And it
you
wouldn't
said?
need that.
Huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what if we put the cover over the deck like you explained, and then off of where the steps were that came off of the deck, that we just put a covered breezeway through
Right.
it that wasn't attached to either
That,
structure?
then you wouldn't be going to BZAP.
Okay.
But that's a
So
different
is it better
design
not to go to
altogether.
BZAP?
Well,
Your
we,
life is easier.
we
Huh?
would prefer that you not, because we'd prefer that you not have a variance.
Right, I agree.
So.
I'm all about simple. you know.
But even architecturally, that kind of goes along with our discussion. Like that could be a result of making a better architectural solution. Exactly to your point. You wouldn't have
I
to,
would-
if it's not attached. Do you want to speak to
Well,
that?
I would need to check the accessory structure code just to be sure. Because then at that point, it's multiple accessory structures in the backyard, the rear, you'd have the garage and then you'd have the,
Oh, for area variance?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
we'd have to do some
there-
checking to make sure, because it's a small lot. Like if it was a really big lot, I could off the top of my head probably say it's not gonna be a problem, but it's likely not gonna be a problem. We'd still have to check all
Right.
the numbers.
And again, it'd be a narrow walkway. It's not 10 feet wide. It's only gonna be like 3 or 4 foot wide. With just the very top of it being covered. This side's opened, so.
Okay, if you're okay with that, I think we'll go to board members because I think they're gonna have some great ideas to help.
Yeah,
you get out
absolutely,
of
100%. Sure.
Yeah,
Did you
getting the
ask if
variance.
anybody is here to?
No, is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak about this application? Okay, we'll go straight to board members then. Is there a board member that would like to go first?
Sure.
Mr. Scott.
Couple questions. One, I think just with the drawings, your floor plan shows like foundations. You're putting on a new deck. Are you demoing the existing deck?
Yeah, yeah, it's rotted.
Are you demoing the existing extension off the back of that house? That has the little flat shed roof and gable?
So there's only a partial shed roof, very small, and we would like to extend it to the corner of the house. All the way down.
Okay, so I think took me a while to kind of figure this out and part if you go to the floor plan. Your floor plan graphically just shows the house straight across, or at least it doesn't go far enough to pick up the change
Yeah.
in the facade of where the door is. I'm assuming the door is lined up where your covered walkway is. Is that true? So if you were to walk from the garage to the house, is that covered walkway going right into the house door?
Yeah, so she has a weird shaped deck there now, and we were
She
gonna
does.
actually build her a rectangular one.
Yes.
And
So
I
my-
believe that it was lined up,
My
yeah.
only statement is that if you look at the way the house footprint works, it actually jogs. Because the door, where the door is, it's an addition to the house. And the plan is just showing it as straight across. So I was confused at first that there was a demolition of the existing. You go to the photograph.
So on the house itself, we were not gonna
going.
demo anything. If you're facing
going.
the back of the house, on the
There's the photo.
right-hand side is a bay window.
Yeah.
If you see where that roof is to the left of the bay window, we were just gonna run it straight across to the left.
Yes, so my concern, just in trying to figure this out, is the house actually has an addition. It jogs out at the bay window.
Right.
But it's not represented in your plan, so it was just a little confusing to me.
Oh, the bay window wasn't represented
It's just
in
not
the
being
actual
represented.
drawing. Yeah,
So, and
okay.
that's, I get it, that's okay, but I think that's something that you'll need to look at. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing a covered attached roof off of your garage and extending it out. That's a design issue if you come out 2 feet or 10 feet. And then there's nothing wrong with covering a back deck that's attached or a porch roof to your house.
Mhm.
They're not touching, they're separate structures.
Yeah,
You'd have to ask if there's a code about the proximity of those structures, but I don't know if there is.
There is.
There is.
Yeah, there is.
It's 10 feet,
10
It-
feet,
but
your
it
garage
can be
can't
lessened if the fire code is met.
so
So there's, I'm
The
just saying, there's
variance.
nuances to this that
are
there's
you
ways.
talking about building a roof coming off of the garage to a
Yeah,
certain
so you're,
point?
you're coming from
and then
one way, coming the other, but you don't touch.
And somebody said they have to be 10 foot apart?
Yeah, any accessory structures have to be 10 feet from the primary structure on the property.
I'm just not for sure what I could build coming off of the garage, how far out I could actually build a roof. It would just be like what I'm wanting to build from both sides, just come out like 8 foot.
Maybe, again, I think those
Yeah.
are some options, or it's a trellis that gives you some protection.
Yeah,
That's not a, you know, so I think there's plenty of options. I think the other thing that I would want to see more detail on is your elevations and the details of your columns and how either the porch roof or your trellis is actually put together. Currently, the drawings are fairly basic and to me, I question how they're actually getting put together because I think your detailed page, the wall sections, the foundation, the stair, and your deck ledger are standard details that I think you use on multiple projects. Specifically, your wall section doesn't align with your elevation. You have this beam that runs up above your soffit and your fascia, but in your elevation, your columns are coming up and hitting a beam that's hit below your fascia.
can we have that put up on a screen? I can't see what you're
Yeah, can you
talking
go to
about.
Which,
can you do both?
uh,
So
no.
here your columns come up and hit a horizontal band that looks like a beam.
Okay,
Your fascia and gutter sit above that.
yes,
And if you go to the next page, top left detail, your rafter is coming down, sitting on the beam that the column is hitting. And then your fascia is lower than that horizontal beam. And your soffit's there, and there's nothing below that but posts. So the elevation isn't representative of that detail. Though we are going to see this detail again. So I think it's a standard detail in your library that,
it
That's pretty good.
probably is a can detail.
yeah. So
It looks like it's a bird's mouth rafter sitting on top of a
Yeah.
beam that just has the soffit running straight
so
back.
I think I would be interested in, I mean,
So-
this doesn't have to be an ornate structure, and we certainly wouldn't, the columns don't have to be ornate.
Right.
But I think the details of those are important.
Mhm.
One, they need to kind of match the existing house.
Yeah, so I would think that we probably aren't putting soffit on it. That was a good for you to point that out to me because it's not a house.
Well, and you wouldn't put yeah, I don't know what you're doing. Basically, you're saying you're covering the bottom side of the rafters and then you're enclosing
Yeah.
the soffit and venting it and.
Yeah, there's
again, I
nothing
think that's
against the post
Probably
that
more than
the-
you need, but
that soffit would actually go to.
for me, it's just trying to get into a set of drawings that represents what's
Sure.
gonna happen. I know you have another go around of design.
Yeah, we can pull the soffit out for sure, 100%.
Well, I don't, as a design side, I don't have an issue with the soffit. I think it's the issue of how your structure works and how it engages the end up being a trellis or whatever structure it is. and making sure that those kind of work together. And I think for us, we need to see those details working, and here, I think it's a little bit, coming from a kit of parts on projects, and you're pasting it in here into these drawings just to try to satisfy a little bit of how it might be constructed, but it doesn't represent the design.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next.
I was just looking at the map here in South Bexley. I just live a couple blocks away.
Oh, okay.
I guess. uh, So on the idea of, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Scott is saying about the drawings aren't jiving with what what your intent is here. The drawings don't reflect the higher house to the lower garage. They're showing the eaves equal and the roof comes over equal and all that. Which I know you'll revise, but why not think of it like a porch off of the garage. You can create a covered porch off the garage. It could be a gable form. It could have, you know, your piers, and then you build a porch over the new deck. And the proximity of those, they're 10 feet apart, but the amenity of having this porch at the garage might be beneficial for the pets, or, you know, even in resale to have something like that I think it would be great. And the same thing with the deck. You reorient the deck, you make it safer, you have it covered, and they're 10 feet apart. I mean, it seems that would be to your client's benefit.
So it seems to me that it's probably gonna be the way that I need to go is to build a studio roof over the deck, maybe do a gabled roof coming off the garage, and possibly doing like a trellis in between the two.
If
Freestanding.
Yeah.
Freestanding
Yeah, I mean,
or pergola.
also think about the weather. I mean, if you're 10 feet apart from one porch to another, how much weather is really going to affect that 10 feet? You know, if it's a downpour, okay, you know, but otherwise, you're not going to, you're going to have wind that's going to bring snow and all that, but it's such a small area to have to deal with.
Yeah.
I don't know that you need to, I don't know that you really need to connect the buildings unless there was some, like if there was some metal structure that, you know, conveyed people on who were handicapped or something like that, where it had to be protected. But this, to me, at that point is more of, it's a convenience, it's a convenience, but architecturally and zoning code wise, I don't think it's gonna fly. I would just try to convince them to have the two and keep them apart.
And I don't think we can determine what the zoning board is gonna say, but we can help you design wise. You know, if your client still is determined to have a trellis in between the two, you can still take it to zoning. That's gonna be a better shot than having
Right.
a roof, a gabled roof.
Yeah, and having the drawings show accurately what you want to do is going to be to your benefit too. Because
Yeah.
these drawings right now, as Mr. Scott indicated, they don't reflect what the photographs indicate. And so BZAP is gonna react to that as well. So update these, revise the design, and then
Right.
So if I have to if I do a covered roof off the garage and a covered roof over the deck, do I still have to go to BZAP?
We can't determine that here. We have to have your new design and then Matt will look at it for zoning. Did you want to speak to?
Oh,
that?
and then Matt is
Yeah.
with zoning.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I
Yep.
think we talked before on other projects.
Probably.
Yeah.
So send it to me
Okay,
when you have what you want to do, and then I can direct you in the right, to
right.
the right place.
Well, see, and that's why I came today. I had to
Mhm.
sell her what you wanted and then come back and see what modifications we have to do in order to get it
Absolutely.
to go through.
He can
Right.
also give you guidelines to help you stay out of BZAP. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so if you just
absolutely.
contact Matt after the meeting, he can tell you what square footage you can cover and keep you.
Yeah.
So we can design around not having to go to BZAP.
Well, I simply.
my last comment, and I'll pass it on to other members, is just to go to the Architecture Review Board website, and we have design guidelines
Mhm.
written there, just to educate your client on, you know, how the city of Bexley is looking to do additions and looking to, for detail, special details, things that are important for the city of Bexley,
Yeah.
keeping its character. So go through those and in the process of redesigning.
And they're very easily accessible now. We have
Right.
updated the website, so.
Well, I do a lot of work in Columbus and Victorian Village, German Village. I'm very used to this.
Mhm.
And I'm sure she's gonna want 80% of something rather than 100% of nothing, so. Sure, we'll find some common ground.
Mr. Hall, you want to go next?
Right, so ditto on the comments that you've already heard. I think you have an amazing opportunity here to be creative with something. I think one thing we need is an accurate site plan. This covered walkway is going to, if I read the sketch site plan here in the back correctly, it looks like it's dissecting right down through the middle of the yard. So to have something that has a little bit of mass to it, a solid roof, it's really gonna put a separation between one side and the other. So the owner needs to recognize that if that's okay or not okay. I think expanding, I think it's kind of a simple solution. I think if you put a trellis-like structure over the entire porch, whether it has a roof on it or not, it can be a single slope with a little bit of a metal roof on it or something. I think that could be explored with an open trellis that's not connected to the porch or to the garage, extending between the two.
Yeah.
And just be a very light, elegant structure. And then it doesn't necessarily divide one side of the yard to the other. And then the paving that you use along there, could be brick pavers, could be concrete. But even exploring, some creative materials to use there. I've got grave concerns about just this gable roof that's going between the two, and then these little small columns supporting it and everything, and how that's really going to come off and whether it's going to truly be successful or not. So, so I would tell you kind of go back and explore it a little bit more from creatively. And I think what would help is covering the entire, deck with something, whether it's a shade structure, trellis, pergola, whatever term you want to use. I think that would help. And then whatever's connecting them could be part of that same family. And it doesn't necessarily have to be connected. So that's my thought.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Calhoun?
I don't have anything to add comment wise that hasn't been addressed already. I think that when you draw the house accurately on the elevations, as well as the door placement, the man door placement on the garage, you're going to start to notice some things that don't quite line up with what you intended, at least originally. That walkway wouldn't line up with the man door on the house or the one on the garage.
So I think that they initially had thought it was gonna jog down.
Right.
That's not shown in the drawings, so you're correct. Excuse me, yeah, the elevations are totally different. And it is not represented correctly in the drawings, but we will go back and make those changes.
Cool.
And I agree that a straight shot roof from the house to the garage is probably not gonna work for zoning or the architectural board. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna talk with the homeowner, and then we're gonna redraw it to where we bring the porch roof out to the edge of the deck, and then build something off of the garage, and then maybe do some sort of pergola arbor, something in between the two that's not fully enclosed on the roof.
Okay.
And I think she would be okay with that. We'll find out.
Mr. Calhoun, are you done? Or did you?
I am.
You are.
I apologize. I didn't mean to cut it off
That's
if I
okay.
did.
I don't have anything else to add, except I ask that when you do come back, can you do an accurate site plan? Because not only does that drop off, but it's angled. And so trying to do that gabled roof at an angle, I don't think that what you drew would have actually worked. But an accurate site plan will really help to see that how your walkway, can be like straight from porch to porch, but not from door to door.
Right.
That makes sense, so.
And I think that now that we're not gonna try and do that one shot, that they will be jogged and on different elevations.
Yeah.
so.
Yes, yes.
But if you're doing a porch roof, that connecting trellis can slide over to the door of the garage. So,
Right.
you know, I wouldn't angle it I would just think about how you
Yeah,
move the kid apart.
I think that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay the first two out and then figure
then
out how to
just-
connect A to B.
Well, but if you
Yeah.
put a roof over the porch, the back deck, now you can just connect to, just go straight
Yeah.
out and then it's done because you're getting, so
Wherever we put the steps coming.
I
down
don't
off the
think
deck.
coming at an angle, if you can't connect and
Well, I think that we would be able to actually move the steps on the back of the deck anywhere we want,
Yeah.
so that it could line up with
Yeah.
the garage.
okay.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we will table you to next month. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is
Um,
there a board member that will make a motion to table this application?
Let's table it to March 13th,
Yes.
2025.
So moved higher.
Second, Scott.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes?
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Hire.
Yes.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you back
Thank you
next
for your
month.
time. See you next month.
Thank you.
Okay, our next order of new business is application BZAP 25-2. The address is 405 North Cassingham. The applicant is Blake Floyd. The owner is Toby Flegel and Sally Robert Fitch. The applicant is seeking a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for a certificate of appropriateness to build a front porch addition. If the variance is approved at BZAP, this application will move to council for approval to build in the right of way. Is the applicant present? Please come forward and get sworn in.
State your name and address, please.
Blake Floyd, 4895 West Jefferson, Kysville Road, London,
You-
Ohio.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, this application is before us for the first time in front of this board. It's complicated because the way that this house is sited, and Matt, you can speak to any of this, please just cut me off
Oh, yeah.
if you'd like.
Mhm.
It will need a recommendation to go to BZAP, and then BZAP will need a recommendation to go to city council. And we don't need to get into this, but I just want to set the whole picture for all of you, and that at city council, they will need a release because it'll be, oh no, we're not in the right of way anymore. are
Yeah,
we? Just, we are.
So
So
a bit
the
of it is.
overhang
Mhm.
is.
Consent hold harmless.
Consent hold harmless. So if anybody has any questions about that, Matt can answer, but we'll just be here. We're just talking about the architecture. I have no issue at all about putting a front porch on this, covering over the front of this house. I think it's something that, most owners want to have. I've worked with the applicant that this was first applied for as an ARB application because there was not an understanding about the variance needed and the hold harmless it needed. So I've worked with the applicant back and forth on updating drawings, which were not correct at first. The house was drawn incorrectly and, I still think there's a little ways to go on the design. There are, I'm going to go to the staff report for a second. On the original application, well, I wanted to show you the house in context, which I don't believe there were photographs that were submitted on the second application, but it doesn't really matter. I put them into the staff report so everybody can kind of understand how the sidewalk works, how the stone wall works, how their grass works, how the public right of way works. And we don't have a good drawing of that. I talked to you today, didn't I? Or yesterday? Yeah.
The site plan.
To make sure that that Blake understands that it is Blake, correct?
Correct, yeah.
That we're gonna really need that for both zoning and for city council. I was hoping to have it for today, but I know that was
I tried.
you're right, okay. But I think that's really critical. And that's what, one piece of information that we don't have here is the site plan that really shows kind of where the columns land in relationship to the sidewalk and the grass and the wall, putting aside all the variance stuff that's needed and the hold harmless. I still think architecturally, we need to understand how this sits in relationship to that little stone wall that's in front and to the sidewalk. Are you changing the sidewalk at all?
No, so pretty much, I guess related to the pictures, the way that,
This sidewalk is what I'm talking about.
yeah, so really, it would come off the house, where the stairs are for the existing concrete. It would be roughly 3 more feet. So it's gonna come pretty much, it's gonna split the sidewalk in half. So it's gonna land right on the sidewalk in the middle of it.
But you're keeping the sidewalk where it is.
Yeah, so what it is actually, so you can see where the gable is, that's how wide we're gonna make the deck and
Right.
the porch, is how we're planning on it. So right there, pretty much from the left part of the gable to the house, all of that concrete is getting tore out. So she's only gonna have a walkway from her driveway to the deck, because that's where her,
I see what you're saying.
yes.
Okay. So to the point, that's not clear without drawings.
Actually, there's the updated.
Yeah, I also wanted to show the board this, not that it matters here or there, except it kind of does, because when we talk about the style of it, I do think you were planning on doing cedar, correct?
Correct.
And I do think the cedar would look better now that it's blue than if it was
Yeah,
white, but that's just
yeah.
a subjective comment. But I think there's some issues about the eaves and how the treatment of the plans are that need to match the existing house as well. But my bigger concern right now is just understanding where this falls in relation to the site plan.
Yeah.
There also are, and I'm sure you probably want to talk about this for a second. I did kind of cut and paste into my staff report. The previous design, the overhang seemed to be kind of proportionally more correct, but I think you wanted more.
Yes, so, previous design, which you guys can see, we was going, so long story short, the issue that Matt, we've talked to him plenty of times, is she's on a corner lot. So the city right away, she technically only owns 5.6 feet off of her house. Well, she's wanting her covered porch to be like a standard, 8 foot off the house by, a 15-foot wide to match the existing kind of gable that's there. So as you can see on the previous design, we just kind of had it as, hey, it's going to be 8 foot. There it is. Well, after kind of speaking with Matt, we would kind of bounce some ideas off one another, just to try to help with the council part of the, I think zoning is who, would be like the next meeting or whatever. We was trying to keep pretty much, as you guys can see, the footer, the post, that would hold up is actually going to be in the ground. It would be into the right of way on the right-hand side. So what I did was we changed it on the left-hand side to where the post would be in her property out of the right of way, and the deck would just cantilever or hang over. It'd pretty much be floating, so it's not actually in the right of way.
So I wanted to include that because I think for any of you that looked at what was posted 3 weeks ago, you might be a little confused. So that's the update, and that's the reason that it is now, the columns are inset.
Correct. We
A
just try to
lot.
help with the zoning portion, I
Right.
guess.
So, let me see what else I have, and then I'll leave it, leave it to the board. Those are my concerns. I mean, I have some concerns about the design, just making sure that the details of it match the details of the house.
Mhm.
I do agree that the columns can be simple, but you may want to, I'm happy to work with the applicant on beefing up the columns a little bit. I'm gonna hand it over to you guys.
Okay, is there a board member that would like to go first?
I'll go first. Can I ask who drew these drawings for the porch? Who did who drafted these drawings?
So my architect did,
Your architect did?
yes.
There's no name on here of your architect?
Is there not?
There's nothing.
Okay.
They look exactly like the last application.
Yeah.
The same architect?
So I think he does use my same architect, which is funny. So when I was talking to him, when I started seeing his drawings, I was like, that looks a whole
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
like Kevin. And the guy's name's Kevin, the architect. That's why I started this. Yeah.
But he doesn't have a title block or anything that, there's no indication of who the architect is.
Mhm.
or address or anything, yeah. And I mean, I'm sure there's an app out there where you can do this, you know, and draw it up. Somebody could draw it up. There's no place for a stamp, so anybody could do a drawing like this with an app.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, we're on the verge of AI for architecture.
I am
You're-
not
you're
good
already
with
halfway there.
technology, so yeah. So
But
pretty
these
much,
details are the same as what we saw in the last application for a porch.
Hmm.
The way I see it, you know, if this was a back deck like the last application, I wouldn't be as critical about the details, you know, but
Mhm.
this is a front porch.
correct.
The way it's been detailed in these drawings is not for a front porch. The house has a certain amount of character. It has proportions to windows, it's got siding, it's got shutters. It's got details, you know, for the gable at the front, all of that. And the way that this porch should gauge that is respecting that. That means using real columns or real piers that have some character to them instead of just 4x4s with, you know, wrapped, you know, trim at the top and bottom, things like that.
So it's actually, they're we're using 6x6s.
Yeah.
And then capping them with a 1x6 cedar.
Yeah, but it doesn't do anything for the character of the pier just by wrapping it with the cedar. It doesn't have any, you know, the base and the cap of this pier are exactly the same. That's not architecture. We're not there yet. So you have to look at the details of the house and think about, your architect should really be thinking about what can make this house more beautiful and not just more functional for getting this large porch, because what you've drawn doesn't match the house, in my opinion, yet. I would also think that if your architect designed a beautiful front porch that maybe had white columns and a beautiful gable, and it stuck out 8 feet, that you go to the zoning board and they would say, that's a beautiful porch, you're good. Instead of trying to do the cantilever and all of that, you know, hanging out over the piers. It's not a solution for a Bexley house to do this on, especially on the front. So I would encourage you to tell your architect to look at the design guidelines, which we have on our website. It's really important that architects get familiar with this and rethink this, because I could not vote for this as is, or even if you refined it with the same details, I just couldn't go for this.
So don't take me the wrong way at all here. I'm just trying to understand, like, what do you mean? So like, cause I mean, I build, you know, like we all together, we do about 30 to 40 houses a year. I build whole houses, you know, and I'm just like, I've told him, I've never ever had issues like I've had here, you know, for a porch. And I'm like, you know, so what are we like? I'm just trying to understand how you guys, like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? I guess just cause like I've never had any issues with
How
my
many of
backyard.
those houses did you do a back?
Never.
Back deck as a front porch?
All of them. They all typically
All
have front
have
porches and
Deck? A
yes,
wood deck as a front porch?
yes.
But in what cities?
So not here. Yeah.
We're a different animal.
That's why I said, you know, that's why I said, I'm trying to
All
like,
I
you
got to
know,
do is drive around and see.
yeah, that's
And
why.
I'm really happy to, that's why I asked if you could give me the name of the architect.
Yeah.
When we spoke. And
Yeah.
we've kind of been down this discussion.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why I wanted
You're
to
right.
talk to the architect.
Yes.
And, you know, reference, because I'm assuming you're not going to take these drawings and and redo them to what your architect is.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is he,
So that's
Kevin
why
will do
I
this. Yeah.
kind of, that's why I kind of want to talk to him.
Okay.
Or her, I
Mhm.
don't even know.
Kevin.
And Kevin, yeah. Well, you still don't know. And just, you know, talk about those kind of details and
Okay.
refer him to the design guidelines
Yeah.
that we have on the website. So, and just to be clear, I don't think, and I don't want to confuse the problem.
Mhm.
So I don't think you can just make it an 8-foot, take the columns out to 8 feet. Cause I think that's gonna be way harder. And I think Matt's been guiding you on this.
Yeah, that's
To get a hold harmless from
Cor-
city council.
Right.
So that is an issue. Maybe you need a
Yeah.
6-foot porch instead of an 8-foot porch. If you wanna,
Yeah, I think anything in the right of way is really difficult in general, whether it's above ground or below ground. So I you know, it's gonna be, and I let him know and the homeowners, it's an uphill battle for the whole thing.
yeah, which is,
So-
I mean, I don't disagree that a very pretty porch will have a better shot at zoning, but I just
Yeah.
wanna be clear we're not saying go build an 8-foot,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, I'm not
columns.
trying to say that, yeah, if that's what it sounded like, I apologize. But, my biggest thing here is that, I think it's to your advantage regardless that, you know, if, when you come before a board like ours or Upper Arlington or Dublin, that the kind of things that this board is looking at is the character of all the elements on it, the proportion, how it relates to the house. And just look through those design guidelines and drive around Bexley and you can see how porches are done. New ones, you know, the old ones, it's not this. And so it's just a different kind of environment.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Mr. Hall?
Yeah, I would advise you to get a structural engineer involved because I understand the foundation coming down and wanting to put the column load directly on top of that. But this cantilever is not significant in my mind that you could probably pull the columns out on the porch. It's only the foundations that's got to set back, right?
Well, all of it has to set back. So,
But he's got the
the-
front edge of the porch coming out. So,
right, so he still needs to go for the front edge of the porch.
right.
Right.
But
So
it's only becomes an issue with the right of way if he's going into the ground with
No,
it.
no, it's everything.
But
I think the thought was that, you know.
so how does this, how is
potentially-
this?
Potentially, if there's a sidewalk or if there's something that the city has to come through and dig or do something in the right of way, something underground that's attached to the structure. I mean, they could cut off the front of that porch if it were up in the air, right? But the whole right of way extends all the way up. So is that,
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is that, and I don't think I quite understand what he's being pushed here to do, because if the idea is the stay out of the right of way in the ground, but if you're floating above the right of way, then that seems to be a little more acceptable. So,
yeah, I don't know that.
okay, but
Yeah.
that's the path we're going down here, right?
Either way, you need a consent hold harmless.
You need
That's the
you
path,
need a,
yeah.
yeah,
Kind of,
What's
yeah,
your
that's,
experience?
huh?
What's your experience?
I don't think you're going to be able to build in the right of way. I just, you know, that to me, that is an effort and a half. And
me and Matt have both kind of told the homeowner and she's kind of like, that's what she wants. And if she can't have that, then she don't want nothing at all. So,
oh,
I've
Yeah.
seen this situation a couple of times in my tenure for 25 years here. and
yeah,
It's just not something that happens because
Right.
it's asking, you know, it's putting a lot of liability on the city and on the owner, and
yeah.
it's just,
I think whether you're floating above the right of way or in the ground in the right of way, it's still an issue.
right.
It is. Mhm.
Okay.
it is. We was just kind of like, it was just bouncing ideas off one another, just trying to
Okay.
help with the next
well-
steps, you know, where we're not actually in the ground, you know, it's not actually, you
Okay,
know.
but
we
what I
just-
was,
Yeah.
if you're not in the ground, it goes against what Matt just said, that you can't come in and just slice the front of this porch off and get into the ground in front of it. If, based on what I was saying, come out from the house, pull the columns out, put a skirt or something around the
Mhm.
bottom of this so they don't see where the bearing is. And
Which we
then-
planned on
Yeah,
skirting it.
right,
yeah.
which kind of helps with this odd looking condition that you have, you know, with the cantilever. I think the columns need to be addressed. They're small, almost like toothpicks when you look at this whole thing, and the cantilever is not helping that. And so there is a lot of work to be done with this. And then the standard details that are below, you know, there's 3 steps shown on the stairs. There's 2, I guess, there. And then there's a railing detail that I'm not sure if there's a railing going all the way around this.
There's not, in the drawing, it shows like, you know,
It's
it's
fine.
not required. It's just part of it,
Um,
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things to work out from a design perspective, and I'm going to build on it. There has to be vast improvements for this to get approved from my perspective, to get my vote. It just doesn't meet the guidelines that have been established here in Bexley. And but I think, you know, go back and kind of explore some of that, and I think you can get there. I think this right of way thing needs to be sorted out Because I think this cantilever piece, this idea architecturally is going to take some significant creativity to, to really
agree.
understand.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Mr. Calhoun?
The only thing I would have to add, aside from what my colleagues have already mentioned, is really to echo Mr. Heyer's statements about it. It just does not feel like a front porch in Bexley. It feels like it could be a back patio with a fence around it that is not that visible, but with how prominent this house is on the corner, it's screaming for something that feels like a front porch. This does not. And I think there are plenty of examples. Again, I think maybe a drive around Bexley you'll pretty quickly see, oh, that could look nice, something along those lines. Stone columns, something bigger with the wood, the openness and the that dividing of the beams and stuff in the top that just doesn't feel like front porch. So I think there's some design opportunities here to really make this even if it's smaller than what is wanted, to really make it feel like a nice front porch. So
If I could add anything, so I totally understand and agree with what all of you have said. So keep in mind too, as well, as it's a lot of this was like literally the homeowner sent me what she wanted and I just am giving her what she wanted. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to make this, and a lot of it is to budget,
Sure.
this is what she could afford,
Yep.
this was, and she found this on somewhere and sent me and said, hey, this is what I want. And that's what she wants.
Right.
The open look with the cedar, so we're just kind of,
Mhm.
not that I was trying to, disrespect Bexley's, this is just
Oh, not
literally
at all.
what the homeowner wanted, so.
I completely understand
Yeah.
that because she may have assembled a Pinterest board and said, oh, I've collected 6 items, 6
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
This looks nice. What can you do with this?
Correct.
And then,
yeah,
and so I think maybe going to your architect and then either coming up with something and going back to her and saying, listen, what you wanted is not going to fly, and here's why. However, what we have come up with is something that we think may work.
Right.
What do you think of this?
Okay.
So I think that's probably a better discussion to have with the client.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So one other comment, I'm sorry. But one thing maybe to explore, and it's just going to bring more money to the project, but could the front entrance be swung around and on Columbus Avenue?
You're saying,
Could you build the porch facing Columbus Avenue? I don't know the floor plan of the house, and then
So-
and bring the entrance to the house off on the face of the building to align with stuff going down the other side of the streets.
so we've talked
And then you
about
stay out
that.
of the right of way. I don't know.
Yeah,
but-
on that side of the house, so as of now, it's just a wall. There's nothing. Yes, I guess in an essence, could we add, an entryway over there? More money, absolutely. Can we do it? Absolutely, if it gets approved. But that is something that me and Matt have discussed, though, that he would, like he said, would have a much better guarantee of, getting approved just because of the right of way and everything else. So that has been in the discussion, yes. Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, yeah, don't build in the right of way. It's anything that goes even in the air is at risk of the owner. They could come in and put a sidewalk in and widen the street, water lines. And they'll rip down what they have to rip down, and it's her responsibility to put it back. So it's.
Which she
it's-
said,
It's not an option. I don't think it's
Yeah.
an option.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I
And I
told
don't
her.
think you'll get it approved. So I think you should stay out of the right of way completely. I also couldn't support the design the way it is, with the cantilevering aspect of it. I don't think is appropriate. I think it's architecturally going to be very difficult. I don't think your architect has at all thought about how this structurally is put together. Even looking at the floor plan, first floor on A1, he's got the columns, which are really piers against the side of the house with the foundations going into the inside face of the wall, which is not possible. He has a 2x10, two 2x10 beams running parallel to the exterior facade, which implies that it's below the actual 2x10 treated joists for the deck. But in elevation, it's all kind of in the same plane, which doesn't work. So that beam is gonna be at grade or below, which I think is a problem. I am full support of having a actual stone CMU brick, some sort of deck or porch foundation that a wood deck could sit on, but you have a solid base that it would be sitting on. I don't like decks as front porches in Bexley. I wouldn't be able to support that. I know this is a unique condition because it's got two fronts, but that conversation of looking at an option of doing a front porch on the other side of the house is a great idea because would be very appropriate.
Yeah.
But there are many houses that have front porch down in South Bexley. I think it's on Charles, maybe it's Astor, but they put a brand new long porch along the side of the house, and that ordinance great.
Okay,
I don't think they have right of way issues there, but that's
right,
what they did. So it can work.
okay,
And I think then I get to the elevations and I am confused with, again, the details, which I hinted to in the last application that were the same in this one, at least 3 of the 4. Maybe all 4. I don't see how with the columns being offset from the edge of the gable, how this structurally is supported at all. I would anticipate that there would be 2 beams that would be coming out perpendicular to the facade that the columns would hold up, and then they're holding up rafters that hold up the gable. In this scenario, you have a beam going across between your outside columns, and then nothing's really holding up the gable. But it looks like it's an open truss.
yes.
Well, it says open, so this is king truss, timber truss, maybe that's the end of that gable. But there's no indication how anything else is put together, and I think in the end would be radically different than what you're showing, the architect is showing. So I think there's some dialing into those details when you figure out what this is, that
Yeah.
you make sure you clearly show. There is, and I printed some out, so these are directly from the design guidelines. There's actually drawings and examples of what to do and what not to do and
Okay.
things to look for. And I actually printed out some like heavy timber king truss kind of gable ends, just to kind of show what that structure would be, but I don't think it's appropriate to provide to you, but I think there's just a lot here that I think
I
you need to
agree.
get the right of way, get the owner to say, okay, if I'm not building the right of way, what do you want to do? You want
Yeah.
to do the 5 feet, which I think still could be really nice?
Yeah.
Or move it to the other side of the house. If she's not willing to do that, I think the project's probably over.
Which is part of the reason, like, why I'm definitely excited to be here today is just
Yeah.
to relay this information to her, because with what you just said, I've pretty much literally had that conversation with
Yeah.
her. It's like,
And it sounds, and you guys have been talking about it. I
Yeah,
know you've been, that's great that you're thinking about it, and we appreciate that. So
yeah, so I
uh,
totally on
I
board
think
with
Kevin,
what
Kevin
you
has,
guys.
if the decision with, at a high level with her is that, okay, I'll be willing to stay within the right of way, then, explore this.
Yes,
And I think it could work. I think you could, pull the gable in and get that relationship right, get the column details right, get the base of the front porch right.
Mhm.
I think it'd be fantastic.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I don't really have anything to add. I think they've covered it all. So, your options are then to table till next month and go back to your architect and see if he can look at the guidelines and redraw something. It's your decision to decide if you want to still try to go for the right of way. But what I hear is that this board is recommending not to do that.
I think with what I've learned today, I'm gonna not do that, and I'm just gonna have to have a nice conversation with the homeowner about her future options that I believe is her options from what I've heard today. So,
That sounds good.
and then maybe go from there.
Okay, would you like to table to next month or do you need more time? If you table to next month and then you decide you can't get here in time, you can't get it done in time, just contact the office and they will move you to the next month.
Let's go ahead and at least, like you said, table, and then if I can't, then
Which we said was March 12th,
we'll
March
see.
13th.
March 13th.
Okay.
Aw.
Okay,
Thanks for sharing.
And just so you know, all of these are recorded are available on YouTube. If you want to, it may be helpful to have the
Okay.
owner listen to the case so she can hear,
Okay.
some of the ideas and the
Yeah.
difficulty that we feel it is.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
okay. So is there a board member that wants to make a motion to table this till March 13th?
So moved, Scott.
Second Calhoun.
Call roll.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Hire,
No.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you back here next month. And like I said, if you can't make it, just let the office know and they'll move you further on, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will now go on to old business. Our first application in old business is BZAP 24-49. The address is 2300 Livingston. The applicant is Bill Downing and the owner is Bexley Apartments LLC. The applicant is seeking architectural review and approval and a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing structure and build a new 3-story residential multifamily structure. Is the applicant present? Please come up and be sworn in.
You state your names and addresses, please, for the record.
George Tenet, 828 Vernon Road. Kevin Dreyfus Wells, 2111 Chagrin Boulevard, Beach.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
If I could read something.
yes,
real
please
quick,
do.
sir. So today I received an email from Tim Madison regarding the lack of public notice for the 2300 Livingston Avenue and 420 North Cassidy applications. Because these are BZAP applications which have been remanded back to the Architectural Review Board from BZAP, and the Architectural Review Board is not the final decision-making board on these applications, public notice is not required as the applications have already been noticed. However, because this is a project with much community interests, I recommend to the board that after giving feedback to the applicants tonight, the application be tabled until the March 13th meeting so that we can mail out public notices tomorrow to ensure the community has ample opportunity for input on the project. That's my staff recommendation to you all. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so please come back up. I'm sorry, that was just a little side note. Okay, so I know you have made some changes from the last meeting, so can you please go through and explain the changes that you have made since the last meeting?
Do you want that slideshow?
Sure, that'd be
Good.
great. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe we'll do this in 2 parts because I think there was some feedback we heard that was maybe a little more general in nature and relates to some of the discussions which were held at the subsequent BZAP meeting. So I thought I could address those on behalf as the owner. Oh, by the way, we haven't met before. I'm George Tebbett. I'm from the Community Builders. I think you were gone the last time.
I was.
Everybody else, I assume, remembers us.
Mhm.
And this is our architect, Kevin Dreyfus Wells from
Oh.
RDL. So yeah, I'll just talk briefly about the BZAP and I think some of the questions that it addressed, and then let Kevin take over on all the design stuff. So if we go to the.
Perfect, thank you.
think the-
And can I just really
Sure.
quickly, is this where you want to start
Yeah,
with
sure.
this?
It's great.
Okay, and I would just like to say that I, in lieu of doing a design critique in my staff report, although I have plenty to say, and I will if you want me to, but I think the board is more qualified than me. But in my staff report, I did put, and I know you've seen it, put together side by sides of everything from last week, because that was not part of the packet, nor is it required to be, but I think it's helpful. So anytime that anybody wants me to flip back to the staff report to look at the changes, please let me know, because it is in the staff report. Okay. All
Yeah,
yours.
just advance to the next slide. I think a big part of the discussion in our last appearance was around the first floor residential and just questions about the nature of first floor residential at that location. And so I might guess that many of you saw the BZAP meeting, but for those of you who may not have, I think there was a pretty robust discussion around that topic. And I think it was pretty convincing. I mean, I think we had a 6-1 vote in favor of the conditional use. I think as part of that vote, there were extensive discussions around safety and whether the code requires that BZAP consider 8 different criteria in granting a conditional use permit. And it requires the applicant prove to the board that the proposed proposal for a conditional use won't compromise health, safety, welfare, or anything like that. So I just wanted to make the point that I think that was heard and approved by the BZAP. And then I think there was some really good conversation too, just around conformance with the Livingston plan. And I think the staff review was pretty unambiguous on that point, that the use is, it is exactly what the plan calls for. It is very much in line with the Livingston Avenue plan. I think there were directions to the ARB about, resolving questions on design and so forth, which is his bailiwick, not mine. But I thought it was useful to frame all those things in terms of how the BZAP came down on those questions that came up here last time. And then I think the other thing that came up was just a request for a map of public parks. If you could show that, I think you're gonna get to it probably next, I bet. Yeah, there we go. That was the map that was requested to just show public parks in proximity to our site. So we wanted to make sure we followed up on that. And then if there's no questions for me, I'll turn it over to our architect to talk about the design stuff. I assumed so, however you like.
That's the one I just read.
Yeah.
I thought that's where I heard something. Oh, he talked about 2300, so I assumed that's where we were.
Great. So we heard loud and clear your comments and suggestions, and have made some pretty substantial changes in a number of locations. We really tried to listen carefully and respond to all of those. I think everyone's familiar with the context, other than we are, surrounded with residential properties to the east and the southeast. So we're sort of in line with that. Obviously, as we talked about last time, we do have a strain site. We have a minimum program and yield that we need to meet, including certain unit types. So that does place some limitations on it, but we've really moved some things around, particularly at the corner. As George said, the streetscape is very consistent with that Livingston Avenue plan. I think the only main variance is that the Livingston Avenue plan, I think, called for 8 to 10 feet for that walk. We were showing 8 in conversation with Jason Sudi, the planner who's consulting and working on that. We're willing to certainly expand that to the 10-foot. But you can see here in that plan, or we can go on to the floor plan, that we have done a little work to push and pull a little bit in the floor plan, which will be evident in the elevations as we get to those. On past that. So just talking a little bit about that street section, and we've got a number of layers working from the Livingston curb back towards the building. There's that elevated planner, which is straight out of joint Livingston plan. There's that wider sidewalk. We have a seating zone area, and then a plant bed that can vary in depth depending on where we are relative to the ins and outs of the building facade. And we've now added some elements at that ground floor, including that trellis that shows up in that section on the left. This is the proposed building entrance. As we get to the plans, we'll see, but we've taken that corner unit, and there were some questions about the proportion of that. We've pulled that back and widened it so that it has a much wider proportion when viewed from across the street. It sets back and gives a little more room to that front entrance. We've taken that front entry element, which was previously kind of a continuation of the Francis Avenue architecture, and given an identity that's really much more in line with the character as you move on to the west down the street, matching that same brick and really trying to make it more of a transitional element. It's gotten taller. It's got brick piers there. And then we've extended that entry experience over that open space with a pergola. And that pergola continues in in a very similar character as you go all the way down the street. There's kind of 100 feet of pergola trellis as you go down, trying to bring that down to a human scale. This is a view looking back the other way. We really wanted to show some of the different elements and the character. We didn't really show you last time what it feels like or looks like to be on that sidewalk. The new thing since we were there before, again, you can see that we've pushed out the center of that bay between the two end caps. We've added those projecting trellises. We're being very intentional about lighting to light that first floor experience in the evening. Added a tree guard type element along the edge of the sidewalk with the posts and the chain, which is an element coming out of the Main Street pattern book. We did want to address the question of how this fits into the joint Livingston plan. And this is certainly the page from that kind of captures that streetscape character, although not in this location. But in the next slide, we did, just as an illustration, drop in our project into that streetscape. This is obviously a kind of a crude collage of that, but and we know that doesn't occur at this site, but we did want to at least show that, you know, that streetscape character. We don't know what's going to happen across the street. That's out of our control. But this is how that fits into that Livingston streetscape. The overall floor plan is, in terms of the number of units and their arrangement, is fairly consistent. But again, that corner, we push that townhouse type unit back, broadened it, which you'll see in the elevation. And move on. There's that more distant view. And so one of the concerns was about that sloping roof as they had previously continued down to the first floor. We've stopped it. We've broken the pitch a little bit to kind of create a more graceful resting spot at the end. We've moved that gable dormer, which is lighting the stair within that unit, and pulled it down. We have taken between the two end caps, as you've seen before, what was previously kind of continuous expanse siding. We've pulled out that middle element, changed some window patterns. We've introduced Julia balcony railings at the living rooms of all those second and third floor units. And there's a view looking from the southwest. I think that covers in general. I'm trying to do that corner piece again, that porch and that element above the porch. We had previously had a brick arch. You can see we've treated that differently. We stepped the wall back a little bit so that we really have three very similar units of geometry. We've expanded those third floor window proportions at the top.
Anything else?
I think that covers the primary changes.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that is here to speak about this application? Please come forward and be sworn in.
State your name and address, please.
Stephanie Bosco, 67 North Cassingham.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Steph.
So I'm the secretary on the Bexley CIC and just wanted to come in and talk a little bit, very short, about the CIC support of this. So in 2012, as part of the comprehensive plan, there was a goal for the CIC to enable some more housing options, and we feel that the community builders is going to help us reach that goal. There was an RFI process, and after thorough review, the CIC chose the community builders. And I had a third point. It's been a long day. Oh, and about like the 420 North Cassidy property.
Yeah, we aren't speaking about that one.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, we're thrilled to have this design. I especially love how on the, is it Francis side? It looks like it's, the townhouse design. But we have a lot of confidence in the community builders and just wanted to show a little bit of support for it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak about this application? Please come forward.
We have more questions.
Can we state your name and be sworn in?
Leah Turner, 993 Francis.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could pull up the site map. I want to say, I think the design is much better. I appreciate you pushing for, something that is compatible with the neighborhood. I do appreciate that. Can you make it bigger, the bigger piece? That one. My questions are kind of about the parking and fencing that are next to our property. Because you probably can't tell, but the whole property line, currently, it's all the same level of, there's no change in grade. But as you go back to the end of the property, there's a big grade difference. And so when you see all those cars facing, our property, which is not very deep, not very wide, it is deep, but I just have some concerns about our safety on the other side, especially when the the level of the ground is the same. When it's different, I don't really have much of a problem. And currently, there's a tree, and then the grade almost to that second tree is completely different. Right now, there's a garage, and then the grade is completely different. It's significantly different. So it adds an extra layer of safety. But when I look up here from that tree in the middle over to that, it's just all even. And that's where we come out of our house, go into our house. And a lot of activity takes place in that middle yard, which is the same grade. So I can't see anything in the zoning code. So I'm wondering, what remedies there are for us. Because right now, currently on the site, the Woodyards had put like concrete, I don't know what you call them, pedestals or whatever, all around their own home. And another thing with the funeral home there, when they parked, people come to a funeral, back in, and they back in slowly. I've seen it over years and years. So now, instead of them backing in, they're gonna be, head in. So if they make a mistake on the gas pedal, one little wood fence, and they're on our side quickly, if there's no other change. So this is more of a safety concern than I'm saying, it's not, I'm totally against that. I just think we need to think about the safety of everyone, especially right there. And then something else I noticed today that I didn't have a chance to talk to George about was this side doesn't appear to have a fence. Only our side and then in the front. Am I correct?
Can the applicant come forward and answer those questions, please?
On this side over here, is there a fence?
There is a fence closing off.
I just didn't see it on the site map.
Yeah, no, that's my understanding. There's intended to be a fence. Our landscape architect is not here, but
Right.
there is a fence.
And can you describe the fence? Is it just a wood fence like what we all would have in our backyard?
Yeah, you can see in the lower right corner. It's an 8-foot fence because that's what the zoning requires at this transition from the Livingston.
But there's no extra structure or anything in that if a car would hit the gas,
As Ms. Turner mentioned, there is an existing retaining wall that.
On that side as well.
On that end of
Goes
it.
around this corner.
And the intent is to try and maintain that, rework the fence around that. To the other side where you were talking about, there would be a concrete curb. It is, because we are constrained by size, it's a fairly constrained site, so it would be very difficult to get up a head of speed, particularly one that would let you mount the curb, go through that additional space, hit the fence. It's, you're making a tight turn. People are frankly probably having to, with a larger vehicle, have to, potentially have to go back and forth a couple of times with that. That is the condition.
Okay. Thank you.
So my main concern is that part from the middle tree to the sidewalk. Because, you know, we're out there moving from front to back, taking care of our lawn and gardening. And I tend to garden a lot, so I'm always out there. And I want to know I'm going to be safe. I want to know my family's going to be safe. I want to know that my grandchildren, whenever they come, would be safe. And I'm just not sure anyone can feel comfortable with that part.
Does your driveway line up to that lot line?
You're not showing it at all. Yeah, that's our entire.
That's your
Our
driveway.
driveway goes to.
Yep.
To the garage. I think you can see the garage right here. Keep going right there.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you really need to see the whole context. No, I really don't and the back part, you know, we generally do gardening and not much activity. Okay, but we call it the 3 yards, the front, the middle and the back. So in the middle, we do a lot of activity because it's a nicer area. So I would want to be protected, and I don't think, you know, I should have to come up with something to protect ourselves, but I will if I have to. And I'm just wondering, is there something we can do?
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of feedback I might get, or,
Well, I have to go through all board members and stuff, so we won't come up with an answer for you right now, but we've taken down your concern and we will try to address it as we proceed. So,
thank you so much.
okay, thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak about this application? Okay, I will go to board members. And is there a board member that would like to go first? Nobody's making eye contact. I'm picking Mr. Hall.
Fine. I don't have a lot of comments other than to say that I like the improvements quite a bit. I think it's helped quite a bit. I think pulling out that middle section on the big building, on the larger mass of the building, making that brick really helped, giving that some relief. The imagery you provided about on the, you know, the pedestrian way in front of it, does show the soft edges of that and everything. And I think the transition from the townhome elements to this, what I think I referred to in the last meeting of school, I'm still not really, you know, I think there could be a much better job of that. I just look at that and just see this big block of building with a bunch of punched windows in it, but I get what you're trying to do. So, and I think it's much better than what was here before. And I think that transition piece does help with the transition, the massing and everything associated with it. I would say that there is you have this 8-foot, wood fence going around the perimeter. And all it takes is somebody slapping it in reverse, hitting, the gas pedal and slamming through it. And I don't think people, I don't think it's realistic to think that somebody's going to have to go back and forth 2 or 3 times to get through it. I really don't, I don't see that as a justification for that. I don't know if that would occur or not, but I think with her residence being next to it, I think that needs to be addressed.
And a quick clarification, I may not have said this as clear as I meant, but in addition to that fence, there is a 6-inch high poured in place concrete curb at the edge of that pavement. Yep.
So how often do you see cars that pull up in front of a building and then all of a sudden they're inside the building and they never really were 20 feet away getting 60 miles an hour to get in? That's my point. They can jump the curb and go through that fence and end up in her side yard. So I think that wall needs to have some structural integrity to it, is my point. I don't know what that is, but you all can figure that out.
Thank you. Mr. Calhoun?
I too certainly appreciate the design changes based on the feedback that we gave last time. But this is a vast improvement. I also think that that right there, thank you. You were reading my mind. This is terribly helpful. Because seeing one and then the other, but not just basically the patch of what it will look like in the vision of this, terribly helpful. So kudos to that. I certainly also echo the concerns about safety for the neighbor. I think there's probably some very easy solutions that could be implemented, especially given the grade change in that. So I don't see that as being a big hurdle. I just think it's something that should definitely be addressed. Yeah, I think that's about all that I have.
Mr. Hire?
Well, thanks for all the improvements. And thanks for the map with the parks. It's great. I appreciate a lot of the changes that were made, especially the connector piece and the way that you solved that. However, there are some things that still bother me about the design, and that's what we're here for. Particularly the deep overhang resolution of the sweeping roof, you know, by cutting it short. I feel like it just didn't go where it needed to go. I don't see Bexley character in that deep overhang. I do appreciate that the dormer came down in your three-dimensional rendering of it. It looks different than what's in your CAD drawings, with the windows being way up above and lots of white stuff underneath them, and that's not what's in the elevations. But really, it's just the way that those brackets that are overhanging the second floor windows, that whole roof system just looks unresolved. And even in the model, if you zoom in, the roof form, it looks like in the computer rendering, you just kind of filled in some stuff there to get some kind of slope, but I'm not sure, it doesn't look resolved. And I don't like the way it crashes into your hip roof of the brick one-story addition between the two buildings. It just looks unresolved. And I think for Livingston, and especially with everything that we're trying to do here on this, and everything we've been through to get this moving, that it's not there. That design is not there. I can't support this juncture. What I would suggest, if we could go to just not the joint plan view, but the other view perspective, the next one. Well, now I get back, there's another one. Just the main three-dimensional view of that. Must be back at the beginning.
I think you'll find it towards the end.
I'm looking at the,
Different.
it has RDL in the corner.
There you go.
That's the one. Okay. So, you know, I don't think we ever had any issue with this. This, to me, feels good. I like the porches. I like that you got rid of that strange brick arch thing that was there. It just felt also sort of uncharacteristic. These do feel a little more Bexley-like. It's all about the details at this point. We don't want it to look cheap, so that's going to be a lot of detail work with the design consultant. I would really like to see this again, honestly, because I'd like to see those details, expanded and elaborated on. But this is not resolved. And what I would suggest is that you actually consider doing a gable form on this elevation, not trying to create this, dormer, this sort of bungalow style dormer up here that just feels, it feels very strange. As strange as the large sweeping roof that you had before. So if this could turn into a 3-story gable where it's not quite something like this, but you're turning the corner and now you're starting to relate to these things, even though you're going to have clapboard, you're going to have gables, but all of this crashing, it feels like I'm, I don't know. It feels like I'm at a shopping center where they're trying different styles that are all just pushed up against each other. This is unresolved. The other thing that I think needs to resolve, and again, there's only a couple things here because I think overall it's really come together. But if we could go to the other view looking from there. This, I really appreciate, and I'm very grateful that you pushed this in. However, what you've done is you've created a building that does not relate, in my opinion, to the rest of the building in terms of fenestration, in terms of the proportion of window to wall. What I would do is simply double these windows and double these windows, just like you have here. That will help to get more brick in between and work a little more like this in terms of the wall to the window openings. And the fact that you have doubled windows here and doubled windows here will actually accentuate the view or the eye being drawn from this wing to this wing, because this one doesn't have a center window. So it really will help to relate. This one will relate to here. This will bounce you over to here. Right now, it looks like a different piece of architecture. It looks like it's relating to other things that aren't here, except for the cornice. This could be a townhouse in Alexandria, Virginia. It could be a townhouse in Victorian Village or Dublin. But if you did this here, now you have unity, but you also you're breaking up all that clapboard.
And we have that version. I didn't draw it, and happy to make
Yeah.
that change.
It's done.
That was more a matter of understanding your desire to try and
Yeah.
break up that
No,
element.
it's great.
So
I really appreciate that.
we're,
But this thing down here, it really needs more work. Other than that, to me, it would be getting into looking at brick details, headers, some of the sill conditions where, I don't know if it's this one or if it's the Cassidy one. I think it's this one where you have a brick detail, very nice, that wraps, but you also you kind of double up the Rolock brick with a stone sill. You don't need to do that. If you can just have the brick wrap with the Rolock, you don't need to have the extra cost of the stone. If you can go to the wall sections or the elevations in the blow up of the wall section, A7.0, I have no issue with those here. So here you have this lovely brick detail wrapping, but then on top of it, you put a stone sill. That's odd. It's more material than you need for a detail in a sill condition. Either you make this stone, you transition from a Rolock brick to a stone, right, and pull this up a little bit so that it's right under the window, or you just eliminate the stone and get the window down to the brick. But the two of them together doesn't make any sense.
our reason for doing that, and our preference is to provide a projecting drip that doesn't interfere with the consistency of the brick surround. That's
Right.
actually a detail that the Trinity Seminary building actually has exactly in that same manner. I think probably for that same reason, so you don't get that streaking of oil down the brick.
But I don't think they wrap this under the stone.
They do actually. They do actually.
Okay, well, it's very odd to me. This makes sense right here, but it seems to me that this brick would turn and transition maybe into a projected stone, but to have them on top of each other. But if that's what's over at Trinity, it just seems odd to me. But that is one of the details that I was looking at. But the cornice, the alignment at the top and the alignment at some point here. I don't know if it's the intention for all of it to align, but I think in the drawing, if you zoom in, there's a misalignment there of some kind. And I don't know if this is a projected line. So there's some places where I'm looking at things that need to be just refined. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because, in my opinion, that whole juncture of the Francis Avenue building with the one story still needs to be resolved. And I would like to see this again. But that's, when we do new builds like this, especially of this caliber, and there's a lot of precedent for this, where the board's just not satisfied all the way, and we'd want you to come back. I wouldn't want to just leave that juncture to you and the design consultant. I think the board and the public need to be able to see that resolution. That's my opinion. So That's all I have.
And Mr. Scott?
I was really excited to see this application come back. Not the fact that it was coming back, we knew that, but what the changes and the work that you did. I really appreciate the efforts that you put into it. There's a budget that you're trying to meet because of the market that this is and the details that you're putting into this building. Though I do agree a lot with Mr. Hires comments, and those are things that we can work through and get to. You know, the level of detail and quality that is in the renderings that you're seeing, even in the details that if you zoom in even to the renderings and then look at the CAD drawings and the elevations that you're adding to this building is giving a level of quality that you don't see everywhere. So I really do value or respect the value that you're in the effort that you're putting into the design. I really like the moves. I appreciate, I think the last discussion we had was productive. The moves that you made in relation to that, I think have been quite successful. I do agree. I was a little less concerned. Now I've seen a little bit more in listening to Mr. Hires on the change in the roof. I didn't realize it kicked out a little bit at the end there. My biggest concern was the connector piece and this kind of almost mansard roof that and it's a little odd to me. If that was flat, that would kind of maybe go away, but that can, again, because it's a little bit more commercial then. So I think it's a connector piece. It's allowed to be a connector piece, however that works. I think this is a little stronger than it needs to be with that roof. I think if you don't need that volume, pull it down and then allow that other roof to get resolved. If it's, I'm not against the deepness of and all the brackets is a little bit unique and quirky. And I think, you know, if you can get the proportions to work, I don't think I'd be totally against that. But I do agree with maybe making the facade and that the 3-story kind of dormer elevation, and it doesn't have to be full. It could come a step up as it goes up, but it becomes a little bit more prominent on that facade. I think is a fantastic idea. So I think that you have some opportunity there just to maybe even simplify that facade. But other than that, I think the site plan is strong. I think your connection to this corridor is going to catapult this area to that as an example that we will point to as other developers come in and start developing on Livingston. So I think that's spot on. Your little trick of doing the before and after in that perspective is great on the Livingston. I think I didn't catch that. So seeing that tonight was pretty cool. So I all across the board, I'm in full support of what you're doing. I definitely sounds like you're coming back, especially from the initial comment, but also with Mr. Hires' comment. I think we need to see a little bit more refinement just in this corner. But the other moves that you've made and efforts that you've made are commendable. I think it's great. Good job.
Mr. Callahan?
I don't have anything to add other than what's been said already, so.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm going to jump back. Is that okay?
No, go ahead.
I do want to address some of the comments about safety. I think these properties have fences built and there's parking and owners will protect the fence. So there's parking blocks put in. Nothing stops all scenarios. You could put a concrete wall there that would stop that and protect that, but then we have an issue of site. You could do brick, but then that's deteriorates and has challenges and there's balances. So I think you should be looking at that stretch maybe and what other things you could do. Adding bollards, you might not even have enough depth for that, but if you have bollards in it, now you have these ugly bollards that are there. So I definitely think it's worth an exploration. But again, we can't mandate that you protect against every single scenario. So there is obviously some activity that's right in as your neighbor there, and we respect that. So we definitely would appreciate any further thought on that area. But as a board member, I'm not going to push you or make it a condition that you have to build a, concrete wall there to stop that. I think there's many other measures that you can employ that will help deter that because something could come from the other direction and it doesn't matter. So people that live along Livingston have those issues already. Have neighbors and friends that have had cars in their front yards. So it's not a dangerous streets, definitely better because they've kind of calmed some of that traffic, but I would definitely look at that and I'm definitely interested to see what you come back with some ideas on that, but thank you.
Matt?
So I was not here last month, but I looked at the drawings and I do think you have improved it immensely. I do have a problem with the connector. I do think it looks like a fast food restaurant stuck in between the two buildings, and I don't like the way that it hits the roof lines hit the building here on the side. So I agree with all the comments said there. Can you pull up the, it's like an elevation that shows the road, because in your elevations that show the road, you actually show the road really high compared to your, no, I want the one that that they actually draw a car. Yeah, the section, yes. Yes. So that should, I mean, the way you're drawing the car to the sidewalk, it makes it seem like the cars are driving at the same height. Or even here on the Francis Road, that the cars are driving at a higher height than what the sidewalk is. Is
Yeah,
that?
I think that's just a drafting issue. I think that this is the landscape architect's depiction. I think the crown is just maybe of the street is a little more exaggerated than it
Okay,
actually.
so we don't really have that scenario. We have the street down and we have the.
I mean, there is a crown to the
grade.
street where the crown at the middle of the street probably is higher than the curb, but as any street
Yeah,
that has drainage would be the case, but it's a 6-inch curb and we don't, or, you know, whatever that existing height is, we don't have any intent of changing that relationship.
okay, that just seemed alarming to me that the way it was drawn, so, okay. I have nothing else from that. Oh, I did have one other comment. On the tall, 3-story building where it wraps around and you have the connector link, was there any consideration of putting some brick detail or something there that would have mimicked like some small windows or something just on that, that high area up there? I just thought maybe some fake windows or something in there that just gave you some details would kind of make that plain brick wall.
We
much
did look at that, and in the relationship with that transition element roof as it currently stands, it kind of felt a little bit squeezed, but I would ask if other board members have any feeling about Mr. Scott's suggestion, which I think is a good one to explore, about maybe just removing that sloped roof element would expose more of that wall and might open up a better opportunity to provide some brick detailing on that wall. I don't know if anyone has
Yeah, that's,
similar reaction,
I
if
think
that's
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I would support that.
okay.
Plus, I mean, if the parapet's high enough, it'll help to hide equipment. You'd have more options for hiding equipment. If you could have windows that wrapped, even if you didn't, we could do what we explored at North Cassidy, which is that we would have some kind of brick paneling or something that gives some kind of articulation to that facade.
Yeah, and we have some detailing on the west elevation, which we might consider some version of transposing here if that roof is not there. We're not able to add a window, unfortunately, because of a fire rating.
It just
issue,
seems
but-
to me that by doing that and maybe raising the parapet to hide equipment, there's so many opportunities there that can be beneficial for you and for the layout and for the equipment and for windows and for resolving this, the Francis Avenue building, without having this clash. So
Yeah, no,
Great.
so I think a good idea. We're fortunate that we don't have equipment to hide on that rooftop, but we.
well, then it
solved some
becomes
other
a
issues.
rooftop terrace for the tenants. There you go. Little amenity.
Yeah, good looking to get into the property management business, I see.
Okay, that's all I have. So are we tabling this application to next month?
Yeah.
I saw a thumbs up.
I would like to make the motion that this application be tabled to March 13th.
Second call.
Call the roll?
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes,
Mr. Hire,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we will see this application back next month. Okay, our last application for tonight is BZAP 24-50. The address is 420 North Cassidy. The applicant is Bill Downing. The owner is 420 North Cassidy Ave LLC. The applicant is seeking architectural review and approval and a recommendation to the Board of Zoning and Planning for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing structure and build a new 3-story mixed-use multifamily residential structure. Okay, we do not need to swear in because we are already sworn in. So if you would pull that one up and go through the changes that you've made from last month.
Sure. Is it the changes in the comments were, at a smaller and more refined scale level? Our responses are basically that we've incorporated them as, at least as best as we understood them, exactly as they were suggested. We can move through the street views. We provided a little additional detail on the intended pergola, that's at the corner of that south, patio off what would, was intended to be the senior center, intended to be stained cedar of some fairly large dimensions. I do want to note that these are the renderings that you saw the last time we were here. We have not updated these, so those refinements and the details just didn't really show up until we. But we have, as we get to two-dimensional elevations, we have taken the storefront where we had a soldier course and extended that around the window to frame that opening. We're reverting back to the previous detail we had back in 2022. The horizontal belt course had been a single soldier course. That's now a triple soldier course. We have, I think that was really primarily the changes on these elevations. As you get to the next page, just notes those materials, but that's really fairly similar. Again, those same changes carry through with that triple belt course coming around. We did have on the left side of the east elevation, we had a trim piece that was kind of continuing the cornice that was deleted, as someone has suggested, and I think that simplification helps here too. And it's a secondary elevation that's not particularly visible from many vantages. Beyond that, there were some requests that we provide details not only of the pergola, but of the trellis elements that are growing facing the parking lot, and our wall section has some details of the intended awnings, which is a powder coated aluminum frame with a fabric awning, and that's just a very simple slope with no free swinging or rigid valance there. We also did, so I remember there was a comment to extend the canopy an additional amount, and we've done that as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that came to speak about this application? Okay, seeing no one, we will go straight to the board. Is there a board member that would like to go first?
Sure.
Mr. Scott.
Great job. I'm in support of the project.
Is there a board member that would like to go next?
I'll
That
give you,
might
I'll
be
give
the
you a little
fastest.
more. Nice job.
Fastest I've
Nice
ever
job,
been
Pete.
taught.
Shortest one.
That is the shortest one ever.
I really appreciate the detail that you've added. I love the triple soldier. I love the surrounds on the windows. Really appreciate all that work. I think this is going to be a great in the future, you know, with the land use strategy plan for North Cassidy, that this will be a sort of bellwether example for future development up there that will be similar to this. I was thinking about that side elevation that we talked about last time, and, you know, doing all the ins and outs, or doing some kind of articulation. In the future, when there's more of these up there, you know, the side elevations are going to become less prominent. So I appreciate that. I would just ask two things, and I don't think this would prevent a vote or need a tabling. It would be simply a condition for me on approval. The first one's easy. Please do not project your brick soldier headers on your windows, over your windows. They should be flush with the brick veneer. This is a strange, I won't go into all the history of these projected soldiers over windows, but it stems from an old Georgian look particularly in Virginia, and it somehow got translated into New Albany, and then all of a sudden everybody started doing it. And so you'll see these things everywhere, but that is not the way you do a soldier in brick.
And you will note if you zoom in on that elevation that they're noted as.
Okay,
flush, so.
okay, great. The other thing is the precast concrete base. I don't know anywhere in town where I've seen that successfully done. They weather terribly. The soft joint between the precast and the brick goes bad very quickly. The masons in town, I'm sorry to say, are just not good at this. I would recommend that you do a lighter colored utility brick instead of doing the precast. There are just way too many examples that I've seen in Upper Arlington, in Grandview, where they've utilized precast or even precast stone, but precast concrete, and they just don't install them properly. I'm assuming you're going to have some kind of drip edge that's going to be down there, made out of zinc or stainless steel, and that thing puncturing through this precast is never a good detail. It looks terrible, and it collects dirt, and you get all this, sort of runny stuff happening at that drip. In my projects, we try to hide the drip by having like an in and out sort of belt course at the bottom, so it's actually underneath a projected brick. But they look terrible. And again, I can tell you lots of developments around Columbus where it's just not resolved by the contractor or by the architect. So my suggestion would be to make that bottom, of course, if we could zoom in on that detail. And again, I'm just kind of nitpicking here, but you could choose even a gray colored utility brick, oversized brick in place of the precast. But there's a blow up of this.
Can I ask, is that an Ariscraft product or is it actually a precast?
It's a rock.
Is the
rock
brick
cast.
actually bearing on it?
Yes.
So it's in line with the brick and the structural holding up the brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ariscraft does require a limestone base, but rock cast does not. You can be in contact with soil, and we've done that on a number of occasions.
It says precast concrete.
I know it says it on the drawings, but that's a common mistake.
It's a precast architectural content.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think it's right.
yeah. Well, the issue for me is not, it could be limestone. It could be sandstone. The problem is that when you have this used as a veneer at that level, the installations that I've seen in the last decade are just not well done. And I don't know if they can't get the pieces level or not. It's the drip edge, condition at the bottom. I just think it would be to your benefit to replace that with a utility size brick that was a light color, matched the Aris, whatever color it was. I also think it gives you more flexibility for, all the brickwork. They can start at the base, they can hide that drip edge, and work their way up. So as much as I appreciate having a belt course that's a different material, and it's not that I don't appreciate that material, but I've just never seen it installed properly. And for the pedestrian zone, which is this zone, to be walking down this street and to be looking at these bad caulk details, the bad drip edge details, I think you'd be much better off making it an oversized brick. Other than that, I don't have any issues. I'm just thinking about long-term materiality, and otherwise you've covered everything that we asked for, and I really appreciate that. So thanks.
Mr. Hall?
Yeah, I really don't have any comments. I'm for this, so I think it looks really good. I appreciate the changes you made. I think taking some of Bill's comments into consideration would help push it along too. So that's all I have.
Mr. Callahan?
I would echo that. I would say the same thing. I appreciate the effort that you went into getting it to this point. I know that this has been a long time coming, and I think this is good.
Okay, and I'm the same. I think it looks great. I feel like most of us have learned from our mistakes and things over the years, and so I take what Mr. Heyer says, to heart. And would ask that you just explore some of the things he's asking for, so. Okay. So we can go ahead, and so we're tabling it again? Yes, because of the,
A recommendation, yes, ma'am.
yeah, so we will table this one more time, to the March 13th meeting. Okay? Is there a board member that will make a motion?
So moved, higher.
Second Calhoun.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes?
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Heyer,
Yes.
Chairwoman Tony.
Yes. Okay, we will see you back next month. And
Thank you.
thank you very much. And that's all we have for today. We are adjourned.